For our COBT viewers and listeners, it's Maynard, Mike, and Jeff here with something spectacular. We've got Reggie DesRoches with us. Reggie is the president of Rice University here in Houston, Texas. We're going to talk to Reggie about a lot of things. He is an engineer by training. He's leading the university, obviously. He's focused on science. He's focused on technology. He's focused on the community. He's focused on Houston, the energy transition. There's so many things going on. He's back from a couple of really interesting international visits. He's doing a lot of things. And Reggie, you're a good friend, so we're delighted to have you with us.
Thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, I should mention we're also right here in the Ion. This is where Veriten grew up, and that's been a big Rice initiative. We'll definitely touch on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Mike. Well, before we jump in with Reggie, what is going on in the energy world today?
Just
another boring day.
Yeah, I sound like a broken record, but it keeps going up. The equity markets keep going up. AI and technology is fueling this. Lower bond prices are fueling it. But I'd say, for this week, from an economic standpoint, I think what most people are looking from a bond standpoint is, what retail sales look like this week and what initial jobless claims look like this week. Today, the retail sales came in a little bit weaker than expected, which shows that there's a little bit of strain in, consumers right now. And so with bond prices coming down, we got to watch this because it looks like sort of that inflation focus that we had talked about. It looks like it's, I wouldn't say we're talking about deflation yet, but inflation has probably peaked. And so that's going to obviously influence the markets here over the next couple of weeks and months. From the standpoint of crude oil prices, I mean, we've had a bit of a rebound in crude oil prices this last 4 or 5 days. We're up about $4 to $5 per barrel. We're at $81 a barrel on WTI now. We've broken through the 50, 100, 200-day moving average. We went through that. We've come back above it. And so there's been some forced covering by some speculators. What's interesting to me is that I looked at over the last 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months, the average crude price over that time. It's been roughly $79 to $80 per barrel WTI. Today it's $80 to $81 a barrel. And so what it tells me, and the other thing too, is that volatility is at multi-year lows. And so this is one of the reasons why I think that the energy sector has not really moved that much. It's kind of gone nowhere, is because crude oil prices really kind of range bound. People are trying to figure out what is demand going to look like in 2024 and 2025. And we talked about this last week, how the IEA and the DOE have different assumptions of where demand is going to be, not only next year, but out to 2030. So that's kind of, I think energy investors are just looking at that and saying, I don't need to rush in right now, especially with the AI and tech stocks continue to just run away with things. One of the things that we mentioned with the broader equity markets is we continue to hit all-time highs, and it's being driven essentially by AI and tech stocks, essentially 6 stocks, and that's Google, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Meta. One thing we pointed out here is, over the last year, the market cap of those 6 names is up $5 trillion. They now comprise 33% of the S&P 500. The other thing that was interesting is those stocks, those 6 stocks, their combined market cap is roughly $15 trillion. That's more than basically the Hang Seng, the Nikkei, the CAC, the DAX, and the FTSE combined. So it just shows you that this is the broader market is being driven by just a few amount of stocks. The breadth is very low. So it's kind of dangerous, but it is what it is, And so that's what we want to relay on that. The last thing we want to talk about is the energy sector. We talked about it with crude prices earlier. Last week, energy was the worst performing sector, down about 2.5%, even with the oil prices up. Today, it's getting a bit of a rebound. And I think it's getting a bit of a rebound because it is pretty much oversold or maybe underbought, however you want to think about it. And so I think energy still looks good. It's 12 to 13% of the free cash flow of the S&P 500. There seems to be value here, but until people start really thinking about crude prices moving higher, we're probably going to be stuck in this range. And so we'll kind of hand it back to you.
Jeff, we've talked about this, but it's like, because we've just been thinking about our latest 10-year forecast. And volatility is the word we're always talking about. And there's no question the whole complex feels very volatile, but oil doesn't. It's kind of ironic.
It is. And part of it is, crude is such a big part of the commodity forces and part of the way people have thought about traditionally about energy stocks. But we need to think more nuanced around electricity. The term volatility and what we're looking at, I think, will widen out over the next handful of years.
Yeah.
One of the things that we didn't talk about here too is just the electric utilities, right? The electric utilities are doing what the electric utilities do, but the IPP, the power stocks, they're really not looking like electric utilities. They're mimicking tech stocks at this point in time now. And so this is the whole AI, this is the whole data center build out. we're going to see power is going to be a growing industry over the next 5 or 6 years, but the power stocks are acting like basically AI stocks. And that's pretty unique.
Well, the other thing will drive volatility is when we're at the edges of tightness or looseness. When you look at crude oil markets, you got OPEC spare capacity.
Yeah.
We're not at the edge of real tightness. And so it doesn't drive any of that volatility we're talking about over the longer term.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, thanks, guys. Well, Reggie, you see, like we just get carried away. This is the stuff we love talking about. But I didn't mention in the upfront, but your background around technology is fascinating. So you were a Mechie at Berkeley, then a master's and a PhD in civil engineering at Berkeley, and then you were at Georgia Tech running their engineering programs. You came to Rice, ran Rice's engineering programs, and now you're president of Rice. And Rice is obviously a really technical place.
Right.
What do you make of the pace of technological change these days? And you're on a campus where it's probably even more pronounced than it is in the outside world. What is it?
It's a combination. In fact, I just sent an email I got an email last night about AI and how AI is changing all fields, in particular energy and healthcare, were the two, and manufacturing. And you look at the article and I responded to the person who sent it saying, this is exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah.
Thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5 and 10 years because of AI and how it's going to really change the way we do everything. And so it's exciting from where I stand. Of course, it's exciting being at the forefront and working with faculty who are doing research at the forefront of this, and working with students who are also involved, and how it will impact our students moving forward. I mean, the students coming in today or in a couple of months will be in a very different place 4 years from now when they graduate Rice, in terms of how AI will enable so many different things for them.
Just since you've been at Rice, because you came in 2017, so you think about 17 to 24, and I was thinking you've seen a lot in that period. You had to manage through COVID. You've had to manage through the recent turbulence on America's college campuses. But you think about the specialties and the things that people wanted to study, and the programs that are in more demand today than they were when you first got to Rice. Like how has the menu been changing, or the requests? Like, how do you feel that shift happening?
Certainly, we're seeing not just Rice, but all universities, an explosion in interest in CS. That was sort of happening as I came in 2017. That interest now is more refined. It's actually not just CS broadly, it's in AI and data science. You're seeing a large interest in that. And we've modified, we developed programs, we developed minors, we're developing majors, and we're developing ways that students can get access to that. Even if it's not their major, they have access to that technology and tools, and they can learn it and use it independent of the field they go in. And the other interest that we're seeing relevant to the conversation today is interest in sustainability and energy transition broadly. We're seeing a lot of interest in that. So we actually just launched at Rice a master's program, which is joint between a couple of different schools on energy transition. And so that's another area that we're seeing a lot of our students have interest in.
One on that transition topic, and we notice this with companies and their sustainability efforts, and we notice it with universities and other places, but it seems like sustainability, and we're probably a little biased here, but sustainability seems best practiced when you're rooted in the classic or the basics of energy. And when those things get decoupled, that's when you start thinking about things that don't work holistically. As you design sustainability at Rice, is that it's a big engineering school, so I assume it has a lot of engineering influence.
It has both. I mean, when I think of sustainability, and everybody has different terms or meanings for sustainability, I really think it's the balance between energy and climate, and they're intertwined, right? Obviously, there's a need for more energy broadly, and we know that depending on the energy forms, there might be impacts on the climate. And how do we provide the world with more energy while minimizing the impact on climate? To me, that's how we think about sustainability.
One thing I think is just fascinating about your background is you were born in Haiti. Your wife was born in Haiti.
No, she was born in LA.
Oh, she was born in LA.
But she's Haitian now because in part she has my last name, and she's been around the family. And so forth.
Okay. But I was thinking, and then you when they had the earthquake in 2010, you were part of an effort to look at building designs and a bunch of things, safety issues. But your experience in that country and culture, it reminds you of the needs for economic development. And this is always a big part of of the energy discussion that we feel like gets left behind. But anything around from your time in Haiti that affects your views on energy and the environment?
It does. And in fact, one of the things that struck me the most, in addition to many things struck me, I mean, I was there less than a week after the earthquake. So we got in early. We were one of the first teams there to help them determine which buildings were safe enough to reoccupy. And one of the things that struck me, in addition just to massive loss of life, it's the most catastrophic earthquake in this Western Hemisphere, certainly in the last century or so, is the important role that energy played, or the lack of reliable energy in Haiti, in their recovery. Haiti is a country that has very little access to energy, reliable energy, and that impacted everything: the ability to move around, the ability to get things done, the ability to get machinery in there, the ability to communicate with others. And so it really struck me how just important energy is for everything. You can't do anything if you don't have access to reliable energy. And that was certainly the case when Haiti was in the acute phase, and even during the recovery, which took several years afterwards. Energy was a critical part of their inability to recover as rapidly as they should have.
Now, I mentioned it in the upfront, but you're just back from some travels to a number of places, but a couple of them involve African stops. And so would love to hear about some of those recent travels.
Yeah, so we just came back from Tanzania and Malawi, where Rice has, through our Global Health Institute, working with several hospitals to develop technologies for low-cost settings, particularly focused around newborn and reducing newborn mortality. And it was fascinating. I had been there 5 years ago, and I can see the big change, in particular in Malawi, in terms of development, building roads. And again, none of this would be possible without access to energy and power. I can see a significant change in just the development, buildings going up, roads being built. I mean, huge highways being built in the middle of both of these countries. And so again, none of this would be possible without the access to energy.
I think I heard one time it was some amazing statistic about healthcare facilities on the continent. The percentage of them that do not have power is huge. So when you're trying to do healthcare in an environment where you may or may not have power, you have unreliable power, that's a whole different
ballgame. And that was a big part of the discussion we had there, was the challenge that you have around energy and powering some of these devices that are being developed there for the newborn babies. And in fact, some of our students, we have students that also go there for the summer and work with the students in those countries. And one of the things that they were developing is a solar powered incubator as a way of helping newborn babies that need to be in an incubator, and trying to do it in a way where they can access the sunlight, which is quite prevalent in that part of the world.
So you mentioned the students. I think we're always curious to understand how students are thinking about energy, how they're thinking about the holistic problems of, we need energy, we need low impact energy, and then you had some on this trip that are participating in these things. Like, I know it's hard to generalize, but what do you take away from student attitudes around energy at Rice? You know, it varies dramatically. Certainly these students on this trip, I think it brought home the importance of energy. Normally you're in a lab, you're developing technologies in the lab. Here, you don't think about energy. You know you're going to get access to be able to plug in the device that you develop. But these students who are in Africa, they had to think about the fact that many of these hospitals may not have access to power. And so how do we think about developing a device that's low cost, but can really help newborn babies? And so it really brought home the fact that it required them to think differently with more constraints than they would in their lab here at Rice. And so I think it's great. That's one of my goals, is try to get more of our students outside the comfort zone, outside the zone of campus, whether it's studying in developing countries like Africa, or even in rural parts of the US, where they have to design things with many constraints that don't exist in the lab. This seems like you're on to something there that's just incredibly important, which is, if you live in the developed world, particularly at an elite university, it's easy to lose touch with, whether it's farming in Iowa or the developing world. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that you get the students those types of experiences?
We're really pushing that now. Traditionally, Rice hasn't had a large number of students study abroad for a variety of reasons. And we're shooting to 50% of our students have an abroad experience just to really get them away from this campus, which is really, in a way, it's kind of a bubble, right? You've been there, you've seen it.
It was a great bubble. I had a great time.
It's a great bubble.
Enjoyed the bubble.
People love the bubble, but having students, even if it's just for these students going to be there for 8 weeks, but even if it's just for 2 weeks, we have programs now where kids go during spring break to developing countries and try to implement things they learn in the classroom. And that really forces them to think differently about what they're doing and the role of technology around the world.
Well, because we're sort of on the issue. If you go spend a fall in Paris, just to pick,
right,
wonderful, but spending a fall in Malawi is a completely different,
very different
experience. Can you get them to do those types of?
That's
almost like Peace Corps kind of stuff.
It's like that, and then we have right now we have 8 kids, but we had 3 or 4 times that many applicants to go to these countries this summer to do this incredible work. And it was just incredible to see the students who are just passionate, and they're in the labs working hand in hand with the Malawian and Tanzanian students developing these technologies. And so one of the things that I'm most hopeful about for the future is the fact that this generation of students really want to change the world and do things that I probably wouldn't have done as a student. I didn't study abroad. I don't think I had the courage to do it. I was just focused on graduating and getting out. But now these students really have a worldview that perhaps we didn't have when we were going to school.
You mentioned change. I was thinking when I first connected with you, you were talking with with Jeff Miller at Halliburton about some thoughts on how universities can interact with corporates and how university technologies can be commercialized and how businesses can play a positive role. And then you ended up going on the board of Hal Labs. You used the word change, which is real close to the word innovation. Rice is spending a lot of time on that. What would you tell us about driving innovation at the university and then outside the hedges?
Yeah. No, we're really focused on innovation. And that's, sort of a tag word. Clearly, fundamental research is core to what universities do, and we will continue to do that. But increasingly, we realize several things. One is we have to work closely with industry, whether it's private companies or the city of Houston. We're doing a lot more, or the institutions in the Texas Medical Center. For us to have an impact in our work, we just can't do it in a silo in our lab.
Is that also because they're telling you what's important to them so you can focus on
in part? I mean, they know the problems.
Yeah.
They know the constraints. Oftentimes we have technologies that we develop that are great tools, but they may not work with the constraints of the company, or they may not think about scale. What I often hear, particularly in the energy sector, is that, this is a great technology, but you don't realize the scale of what we need and the problem we're facing. And so it's only by working with industry that we think about that, and the cost issues, right? You can develop something that's great, but it's just never going to be implemented because of the cost is just too high. And so working with industry allows us to really understand those constraints.
And can I ask if that judgment that working with industry aids research and makes it more effective and impactful, you think that's widely held, or is that, because it seems, at least in energy, we experience this, hey, those guys, at least certain types of you guys stay over here. Like, is that where's the sentiment in universities these days about that?
I think it varies by university. I think we have in part a different sentiment because of where we are. Our sentiment is probably different from what you might see in some places on the East Coast and some places on the West Coast. But for us, we realize we have to partner with industry. They're right here in our backyard. They're literally in our backyard. We've worked with them for years. They supported Rice for years in a variety of ways. And so we've been very clear that to solve this problem, we can't do it alone. I don't think industry can do it alone.
Or whatever the problem is.
Right. Certainly there's problem around energy.
Yeah.
In particular around this space, we have the unique opportunity that many of the majors and non-majors are right here in our backyard. So we have an opportunity to work with them in a way that many of our peers do not, literally just taking a 30-minute drive and working with them. So that's something that we've been very clear about, that we are committed to doing that.
Reggie, back in January, I believe it was, here at the ION, you guys announced a partnership with Woodside Petroleum Rice for decarbonation accelerator business. I think Woodside is contribute $12.5 million over the next 5 years, with the aim of breakthrough carbonization technology from Rice Labs to the market. I guess my question is, how did this come together? How do other companies come to you to basically do something like that? What's the process?
Yeah, in this case, there was a lot of conversation that took place. We've had relationships with Woodside through various entities on campus, and a lot of conversation in this case with our VP of Innovation, Paul Cherukuri, who had conversations and said, hey, clearly you're doing this work. We have expertise in this space, and we really want to do something. I know Woodside was much more interested in actually developing technologies as opposed to supporting fundamental research. Clearly, fundamental research still is important, but in this case, they said, we want to develop technologies for decarbonization. And they came to us and said, can we come up with an agreement on how we do that? And that's how it came about. And so, we are open to all sorts of models. That's one of the things that we really try to focus on, is not being so rigid and saying, okay, we need to do it this way, or we need to do the research so it's in our lab on campus. It could be in the ION district if it's more applied research. It could be in our lab if it's more fundamental, or we can have other models. And so there are many different things, and we're really open to working with industry. And after that was announced, more industry has come to us and asked us, how do we do something similar, although it might be slightly different or a different focus area? How do we engage with Rice?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Meg is here Thursday, I believe, speaking with Anise Parker. So it sounds like they really are, part of the community now. So yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and Mike opened the door talking a little bit about the ION. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was walking in, and there's names you would expect, sitting here in Houston, big energy companies, et cetera. But Woodside's one, but also Home Depot is on the board in terms of partnerships. Maybe just talk a little bit about the ambitions of the ION district. There is starting to be some diversity in the corporate partners here, and how you think about what you'd like to accomplish over the next handful of years with it. Yeah,
so it's obviously there's the ION building. We are in the ION building here, and it's almost full now. We're pleased to say it's 90% occupied, with a diverse set of some from the energy sector and others from the technology sector. And we hope to continue to develop the ION building, but also the full district to really be an area of innovation broadly for the city of Houston. This is roughly 16 acres at this district, and I look forward to working with the city itself and with industries here to figure out how can we bring innovation, how do we bring industry together with the incredible talent from the universities in this area, with dollars, with philanthropic and venture dollars to drive innovation in the city of Houston.
I was thinking, Reggie, so I mentioned your experience at Georgia Tech, but you spent so much time at Berkeley, and Berkeley is a place, just well established for all its scientific prowess and interactions with the community and innovation. Like what? And then you see other places around the world and what they're doing. How do you kind of rank the combination of Rice, its the local scientific community, Houston industry, the pro-business community, the business environment? Like, how do we rank, and how do you project how good this community could be when it comes to the marrying capital, innovation, and academic research?
Yeah, we're clearly a little bit behind. Certainly the Bay Area is a model that people often talk about what's happening in Silicon Valley, and they're obviously a little bit ahead of us here, as are parts of the East Coast. Kendall Square is another example. I often talk about Kendall Square as what I think the ION district can be in the future. But I think I think there's no place that has greater potential to do it than the Houston area, with the universities that are here, the industries that are here, and frankly, the can-do mentality of the city. I think we have the opportunity. Obviously, we have to pull more VC funding into the city of Houston. It's not where it should be compared to parts of the East Coast and West Coast. But I think the combination of all that, I think, provides us with an opportunity that is unlike any other place in the country, I would say.
I was thinking, a lot of us heard the Bill Gates quote at CIRA, where he said something to the effect of, there's a number of places you can have the idea, but if you're going to build it, I suggest you go to Texas.
I think that's very true.
And so the applied, you used the word applied earlier. Is that something you're emphasizing or talking about?
Absolutely it is. The applied nature of the work that we do, making sure that we don't keep things in the lab, but we figure out a way to get it into the bedside and marketplace as fast as possible. Bedside in the case of medical work, but into the technology as fast as possible, which is why we created an Office of Innovation to really focus on that aspect of the work that we do. It's increasingly important, not just for us, but even for people that we're recruiting now. It used to be you recruit a faculty member, they cared about the students and their lab space. But now increasingly they're asking, okay, what do you have in terms of support for me to commercialize my technology? Do you have access to funds? Do you have space off campus where I can build my company? And it's something that's increasingly important. And we want to make sure that we have those resources to recruit the best talent.
That's pretty fascinating. None of us know what it's like to try to recruit talent or faculty members. I was noticing in your, the quick stats, you've got 900 faculty, I think it is, and 8,600 students.
Yeah.
So this is a large thing to manage.
It is.
And then I also notice on, on Twitter, X, you're going to football games, you're in Malawi, you're, doing all this stuff. Like, how do you possibly manage all of that?
It's a lot.
And be a cheerleader for, you have to, you have to manage, and you have to be there at everybody's event, whatever it is.
In addition to not sleeping much, which is part of it. Actually, I do try to. I really focus on getting my sleep. It's so important. So I want to tell the people out there, get your sleep. It's important. But you have to have a great team, and I'm really excited about the team that we've built since I've been there. Hired a number of new vice presidents, and we have a group of deans. But you have to be focused. You really have to figure out what's important for you. So we just went through a strategic planning process to map out the next 10 years for the university. But it's a lot, as you mentioned, there's the academic side of things, there's a research side of things, and there's a real estate, right? We have this real estate asset here and in Rice Village and managing that, and the athletic piece, which is becoming, as you know, extremely complicated and complex.
Well, it's in the paper today. Rice is thinking about a new football stadium, that hasn't been mentioned in the last decade or two or three. So that's cool.
We're thinking broadly about making sure that all of our facilities, not just a football stadium, but making sure that if we want to do great things, because one of the things that you mentioned, we have 900 faculty, we're going to hire an additional 200 faculty, and very few universities are going to grow as we are. But we want to make sure that we have the right spaces, whether it's labs or teaching labs, research facilities, athletic facilities for our student athletes. Make sure we have the right facilities for them to be able to compete in the classroom and outside the classroom.
So, unfair question, because it's or probably all of our hunch. If you're trying to make Rice more impactful, trying to interact with these outside world organizations that have questions, and you want to drive Rice's everything that matters to Rice, does that necessarily mean that the school would be getting more science oriented?
No, I wouldn't say it.
Or more engineering and science?
No, it'd be a dangerous thing for the first.
I was not a STEM major, so I'm not without bias. I'm asking this.
As the first engineering president of the university, it would be a dangerous thing for me to say we're going to become more engineering.
Well, I knew there would be anyone getting this.
We're a broad. I think what's exciting about Rice is we do have clearly strengths in the STEM fields in engineering and science. But we have strengths in the non-STEM fields. Our music program in architecture and humanities and social science, and our business program is outstanding.
Now, you started a business major, I believe, which is new for Rice.
Yeah, we have a new undergraduate business major, which is one of the most popular majors. It's competing with computer science now as the top undergraduate major at Rice, and I think that's good for our student body. So we're gonna remain balanced. We roughly have 50% of our students are STEM, engineering and science, and 50% are non-STEM, all the other majors. And I don't see us moving away from that in the near future, becoming more STEM heavy at all.
So one question I'm curious about research, and this is something we perceive as we talk to energy policy, climate, environmental experts, is the impression you get is, research dollars tend to be available for certain subjects. And the more your subject aligns with the dollars, the higher probability you can get the dollars, as opposed to the government saying, hey, we just got a bunch of dollars and, whatever your topic, like sure. So how do you, as you try to build research and the dollars are only available, I think, in certain directions, does that mean the school gets pulled in certain directions? Like, help us understand the research funding world.
And it varies by agency, right? So you have some of the bigger federal agencies, which include National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, Department of Defense, and others like that. And they have priorities. And so you want to make sure that your research is aligned with your priorities, with those priorities. Not all your research has to be there, but certainly if you're orthogonal to what they want to fund, you're going to have a hard time bringing in research dollars and achieving the goals that you want. Good thing is that they are well aligned. I mean, clearly there's a lot of focus at NSF and DOE, Department of Energy and DOD around energy and energy transition. And that's an area where we built a lot of strengths moving forward. And NIH is always focused on various diseases, whether it's cancer or neurological diseases, and we have a lot of strengths there. So that's not an issue in terms of we tend to be well aligned, and most faculty members don't just do one thing. Depending on the work that they do, if it's fundamental material science, it could be applied to manufacturing, it could be applied to energy, it could be applied to health. And so there's always an opportunity to go after funding. And that's a big part of what a faculty member does, is to find where their skill sets and their tools match the funding that's available through those agencies.
So I was just thinking from your previous comment, how do you go find 200 new professors? Like that sounds... It sounds so hard.
It is as daunting as it sounds. Yeah. It's exciting too. I mean, I keep telling people there's nothing more important that Rice is going to do in the next 5 years, other than continue to recruit exceptional students, which we do, than the people that we hire and we retain in those 5 years. Because that will be the basis of everything that we do as a talent that we bring in terms of the research, in terms of the teaching, the mentoring of graduate students. It's all based on bringing in talent and providing them with the infrastructure, space infrastructure. And that's why we're looking at all our space needs as well as the administrative support to do it. But it is exciting, but it is hard. So it is very hard.
Will you be able to find them all in the U.S. or will a lot of them be international?
They tend to come from the U.S. They may have international roots, right? Okay. They may have done their undergraduate in India and then did a PhD at MIT or Berkeley or Georgia Tech. But the vast majority of them are U.S. based, and we're competing with all the top schools for the same talent, and we've done exceptionally well. I'm really proud of this class that we're bringing in this year. It's the largest hiring class we've ever had at Rice, with 55 new faculty. We've averaged around 25 in historical years, and we're building up the faculty because we want to keep that student faculty ratio the same as what it was when you were there and what it has been historically at roughly 6 to 1. So we're adding around 1,000 undergraduate students. And so we're adding around 200 faculty to keep that ratio roughly the same.
Wow. So there's a lot of talk in today's world about deglobalization, and onshoring and, we're supply chains and national security. There's a lot of talk about not being as connected as we used to be. Is that happening in the university world, or how do you think about those issues?
It's certainly not at Rice. I don't think it's happening in the university world. I mean, we continue to recruit students from all over the world. In fact, if you look at particularly at the undergraduate level, it's around 10% of our students come from outside the U.S. At the graduate level, it's about 50%, and it's a little bit higher in the STEM fields. And so we truly believe that we need to recruit talent wherever it resides, whether it's in Africa or in India or in Europe. And we need to work with people from all over the world for us to achieve our goals. So there are great minds all over the world. And so that's why we're forming this. We have a campus now in Paris that's going to serve as our sort of European base to work with a variety of universities there. We're about to launch a presence in India, in Bangalore, that will serve as a sort of a hub for our activities broadly in Asia. And then in a couple of years, we'll look towards Latin America for another hub.
So sorry, what will be in Bangalore? Like
we'll have an office,
branch office.
We'll have an office essentially. We're not building a full campus, nor did we build a full campus in Paris. We have a building that we use to host students, to host workshops, to bring faculty there to teach classes. This summer, we're teaching around 200 students for 3 weeks, different classes in Paris. It gives the students a chance to study abroad, but also gives a chance for our faculty to form partnerships with other faculty in that part of the world. And we're going to do a similar effort in Bangalore, India, moving forward, because again, we want to find talent wherever it resides.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Reggie, I know early on we talked about AI, how AI, technology stocks are just driving the market. And some interesting to me is I would say 2 years ago, probably not even a year ago, we weren't really talking about AI. We weren't talking about data center growth. Now, all we can talk about is data center growth. What that means for electricity price, power prices, blah, 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 blah. Instead of talking about that, maybe talk about how you're going to use AI at Rice University from the standpoint of students, faculty, research, labs, stuff. How do you think in 5 years from now, things will be different at your university with that AI?
That's a great question. I don't think we know what it's going to be like in 5 years. Based on everything I've read, it's hard to know what it's going to look like in 5 years.
But is it something you concentrate a lot focused on?
So I think there are three pieces to that. Certainly on the research piece, we are making sure that part of the hiring that we're doing this year, the 55 people, are people that have expertise in AI, because we know it's going to drive innovation in energy. It's going to drive certainly innovation in healthcare, and those are two of our three pillars of our research. So we're definitely hiring a cluster of faculty to work in AI as a major effort for research.
Awesome.
Two, on the education side, we have this phrase in our strategic plan, responsible AI. So how do we teach our students to use AI responsibly? We know it's there. We're not going to tell them, don't use AI for this paper or don't use AI for this. Use it. Tell us how you use it and make sure you're using it responsibly. And so we're going to make sure that we infuse it as part of our educational efforts to make sure they know how to use it in a responsible way. And then the third piece is, how do we operate as a university, which I'm excited about, because we've never thought in this fashion. How do we use AI in perhaps admissions or in monitoring how our students are performing, figuring out who might be struggling. And so figuring out how we can be more efficient as a university. So we actually hired a consultant who's going to be a full-time staff person who did that for industry, to come in and look at our operations broadly and say, okay, can we save money here? Can we be more efficient? Can we do certain things with the use of AI that allows us to free up funds to do other things? And so we are looking right now, and this is literally 2 months old, at how can AI and technology allow us to operate much more effectively as a university. So it's absolutely exciting.
Yeah.
It's absolutely exciting.
Reggie, you've talked about growth a number of times, and it seems, amongst elite universities, that is a differentiator for Rice. And we talked about growth in student body, growth in faculty, growth in fields of study. I mean, for an institution with as much history and as much, it just feels different than what you see for a lot of the other really strong universities. Can you talk about, what has been the catalyst for that? What is behind that? And what is the ultimate aim for all this?
That's a great question. I'm actually surprised you've recognized that very few universities, particularly of our kind, private universities, are growing. We are growing more, for sure, than any other private institution in the top 25. The 20% growth that we're happening. It was for a couple of reasons. One is we are small. We're still small. We'll be at 5,000 undergraduate students. That puts us the bottom quartile of our top 25 private institution peers. But it was really an issue of access also. Rice receives, in this class coming in, almost 33,000 applicants for a class of 1,200. So we're rejecting kids that we know can do the Rice work and can be great scholars in the classroom, but we just didn't have a spot for them when we were accepting 1,000 students. Now we're up to classes of 12 or 1,250. So it was really an access issue, and it allows us to really have a broader impact in terms of growing the faculty, keeping that ratio the same, allows us to bring in talent that's going to allow us to do some work that we traditionally haven't done. There are costs associated with it, just because we are a heavy hands-on kind of university, small student faculty ratio. We're a residential college university, so 80% of our students live on campus. So there will be costs associated with growing the student body, but we felt it was the right thing to do from an access perspective and from a perspective of really having a bigger impact.
What do you notice, Reggie? We were talking a lot about partnering with industry, and of course, in the energy world today, we've noticed a lot of organizations partnering with each other to figure out things or scale things or invest together, et cetera. Are universities cooperating more on various things, or what is the trend around
with each other?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Trend? Yeah, I think that's worked well in the past, and I think that continues to happen. Many of these funding agencies really sort of require you to partner with other universities. So we've had, a number of grants this year we've had that are huge grants. We had a $55 million NIH grant, ARPA-H grant to solve some cancers in unique ways. I think that has 18 universities. We're one of them. We're the lead. But many of these initiatives now that are funded by the federal government really require you to partner with other universities. And I think we do that well. I think increasingly, at least certainly Rice, we realize the value of partnering with industry, and we've tried to put infrastructure together to enable that.
Like as it relates to energy, and I probably shouldn't rattle off what I perceive to be the leading universities in energy, but if you start thinking about them in energy country, like A&M, Texas, School of Mines, MIT, Stanford, like if you think about the schools in energy, do you notice growing affiliation amongst those schools around energy?
Yeah, I think there are. There are a number of efforts that those universities work together. We certainly want to be part of that conversation. I think we are. We brought in a lot of talent in the last few years for people that work in energy. Again, because we're still going to be small, even we're adding 200, we have to figure out what are the areas where Rice can be the best. And this is a theme I've told all of our faculty. We can't do everything that an A&M or a UT does because they're 5 to 10 times our size in terms of faculty and students. But we can pick areas that we can be the very best, not just in Texas, the very best in the nation. And let's pick those areas and go full force in those areas as opposed to trying to do everything.
So we've talked just as we've discussed things, health has come up, certainly technology, technology like computer science type technology, analytics, et cetera, and energy. Are those, like, what are the power alleys for
So we've identified 3, we call them pillars of thematic areas. One is around health and medicine. We have the opportunity because we have a really strong bio program. It's one of the top, I think it's number 9 in the most recent ranking. Really great bio program. We're across the street from the largest medical center, one of the best medical centers in the world. So that's an area that we're going to continue to push forward and be strong in. The second is around energy and climate. We always say energy and climate together. Again, because of where we are, the energy transition, I believe, is going to be led out of Houston. And we want to be a major player on the research and translation and innovation side of that, partnering with the industries that are here. And the third is what we call urban issues, sort of building off of some of the work in the Kinder Institute, because it's unique. There's nobody really doing that work. And in partnership with the city of Houston, looking at issues around education, around transportation, around housing, and how do we use tools like AI to allow us to better understand how the city can be more prosperous and equitable moving forward. And so those are the 3 pillars. And obviously AI and computing is going to be a foundation to all 3 of them.
Do you think, so we got to Houston in 2003, I had gone to Rice in the late 80s, but just the growth that Houston itself has seen is dramatic. By some numbers, we're the 3rd largest city in the country, but how intertwined do you feel like Rice's future is with Houston and what's going on in Houston affecting Rice?
Completely intertwined. I think we benefit from a strong Houston.
And it maybe wasn't always that way?
It probably was. It certainly increasingly is in a number of ways in terms of how we partner with the city of Houston on the research front, whether it's the industries that are here or the medical center or the city of Houston, which is a big partner with the Kinder Institute and some of the things that we do there. And so I always say that our future is completely dependent on the future of the city of Houston. And I like to think that Houston is better off by having a stronger Rice and a bigger Rice. And as part of the reason that we're growing. So it's completely intertwined. I think one of the big, it's a secret weapon that we have in being in this incredible, large, diverse, dynamic city. And we're trying to figure out how we leverage it even more moving forward.
Yeah, people probably who are watching this from places far from Houston don't appreciate just how much there's diversity of everything here.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're constantly amazed. People don't realize how many non-oil and gas energy companies or energy-related companies are here. It's really stunning.
Yeah, it's a misunderstood. I think it's a misunderstood city in some ways. Sort of center of the country. There are a lot of people still that I'm shocked have never been to Houston. I thought everybody would have been to Houston. Like everybody's been to New York and LA and the Bay Area. But when people come here and they see how diverse it is and how great art scene. And the restaurants here are incredible. People are like, wow. Obviously, we don't want to bring them here during the summer.
Right.
It's a little shocking, the heat, but people come here and they just had no idea Houston is what it is.
So as you're recruiting professors, new professors, is Houston a big asset?
It is a big asset from a couple perspectives. What I just mentioned, the diversity and the culture here, but also the cost of living. The reality is we're competing with schools, who they are on the West Coast and the East Coast. It's probably, almost a factor of 2 for faculty to live there. And so there are huge advantages to being to Houston.
And no state income tax?
And no state income tax. I always tell our faculty, just add, 8% to your salary.
Oh, yeah. No.
So it's a big plus for us.
Well, one question, I'd sort of be remiss if I didn't ask. It's just, when you think of hard jobs in today's world, I might say public company oil and gas executive might be one, but university president would definitely be one, particularly over the last handful of years in the spring and everything that we saw debated and happening on campuses and Congress getting involved and all this kind of stuff. Just what has that been like? Like, how do you manage that? What's the outlook for that going forward?
It's been tough. I mean, so The Economist had an article, I think it was The Economist, that said this is the toughest job in the world.
All right, we're going to attach that article, make sure everybody sees that.
But I wouldn't give it up for anything. I think it's a great job. It's tough, and it's gotten more complicated with obviously the Middle East crisis, and before that COVID, and I think social media just makes things move at lightning speed in terms of how you have to react to things.
Can you imagine the thing with Willie's statue in the era? I mean, the thing where they moved it.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
In the social media world. I mean,
absolutely.
It had 10 million views.
Absolutely. So it is certainly a complicated job, and it's a difficult job. I wouldn't be telling the truth if I said it wasn't, but there's no better job to be able to work with talented faculty and incredible students and great alumni. It's a great job.
Do you think from all this, maybe the positive thing is, I think what we've all wondered is about the debate and intellectual freedom and really letting opinions flourish without letting those become problems for people. Like, is the outlook kind of positive from here, that we've kind of learned a better way forward?
I hope so. Obviously, the crisis continues, and the students are gone now. They'll be back in the fall, and we've really focused on making sure that we honor the importance of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but we also want to make sure that people abide by the code of conduct and realize what their words really mean. And trying to balance the two of those things is challenging.
Well, and also I think this is why up front it was so interesting to talk about your program to get students to go to the developing world and go to some places where they have it that's so much still not as good as we have it, and that kind of sobers you up on a lot of fronts.
It does.
Well, maybe we should end on a couple of things. We're in the Ion. We've grown up here. We've been here 2.5 years. It's been a fabulous place for our company to get going. So I think we should tell you thank you.
Thank you.
Really, that Rice has done this. It's been great.
Thank you.
But what is as you think about the Ion going forward, the vision for it, what it might become, other buildings, a whole community, like how big is Rice's ambition around all this?
It's limitless, I would say, for sure. I mean, this is just one of what will hopefully be many buildings in the Ion district. And, we're sad to see you go, but we understand it's time for you to move on. But we're pleased that it served you well, and that's what we want. We want people to come here and feel like they benefit from it and move on to other spaces. And so we're really excited. We have a whole team now that's sort of thinking through what should the Ion look like and going through a visioning process, and how do we really do something that will impact the city of Houston.
Well, I was going to say, not so fast. We've told your team they can't get rid of us. We're going to stay involved at the Ion.
I'm sure.
Well, we always ask people, Reggie, about what does energy look like in 10 years. It's kind of our favorite.
Yeah.
It's really our main reason for existence, is just trying to help people understand what that energy world is going to look like. Rice just is in the midst of a 10-year plan, interestingly enough. As you think about, I know you don't want to get ahead of the plan, but as you think about the broad outlines of Rice /Houston /your world 10 years out, what are the main things on your radar? What are some of the things you're thinking about?
For the university?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, continuing.
And its interaction with the community.
Continuing to grow the university. We're still in the middle of this growth spurt, and making sure that our campus is up to, can accommodate the growth that we're seeing. Engaging more with industry and the city of Houston. Again, I think it's the greatest asset that we have, is that we have this incredible city with this medical center and a number of industry, and figuring out how we foster that collaboration in a meaningful way that benefits both parties. moving forward is a big goal, and making sure we continue to remain at the same time that we're doing all these things and growing. We have to remain true to what makes Rice special, and it's the experience that you remember, that personalized, we call personalized education, where a faculty member may know if you're missing class and may call you the next day. And so even though we have these broad ambitions, we want to remain true to the core of the university. So,
or Mike, you may get an AI message. Hey, you weren't in class.
Yeah. Are you
Just
okay?
tease it. No, it's going to be personalized. I was thinking, what it's interesting. I might have said up front, I hope I did. You're the 8th president in Rice history. So you will likely be the president in 10 years. I mean, these are not quick jobs.
Sure.
So that's kind of fun to think about.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about.
We want to book
just
you 10 years from now
the change that's happening so
to come
fast.
and visit with us.
Yes, I love that.
Well, we really appreciate you as a Rice alum. I love what you're doing at Rice. There's a lot of energy. It's a lot of fun. But as Houstonians and as energy people, we're very excited about what's going on at Rice, and certainly appreciate everything you did for us at the ION.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to work together.
Look forward to it. Thank you both.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank all three of you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.